So when we train our first-time teachers, novice teachers, one of the first tricks we train them on is what we call attention grabbing of kids. So I'm going to try it now, and I would request you to indulge me. So it goes something like this. I say 1, 2, and you shout back, eyes on you, and you look at me, right? Let's just try it out for once. 1, 2. Eyes on you. 1, 2. Eyes on you. Great. It feels beautiful to be a child even for a moment, doesn't it? So I want to start talking about an experience that I had about a couple of years ago. So I was sitting in a board meeting, and I'm usually entrusted the responsibility to provide the operational health check of our organization. So it's a quarterly meeting. You have the board of directors, the executive team, some staff members, some advisory board members, and occasionally a guest depending on the agenda and so on. But every now and then, there is an element of inspiration that we bring intentionally into the board meetings. This is not the data, not the PowerPoints, but something real life. It's usually a child or a group of children or a teacher or a fellow who's done some magic, or an alumnus from our program who has gone ahead and reformed a community. It could be anything. But he or she walks into it just to give an idea of what impact looks on the real ground. Because for the data and all that, I'm there anyway, right? Somebody has to do it real life. So the particular board meeting I'm talking about, I had the privilege of listening to one of the most inspiring stories that I've ever heard. Meet Jai Mishra. So he was a fellow, and he taught for 2 years in an underprivileged school in Pune. Before I get into the details of what he shared and how it shaped my thinking, I would just like for all of us to watch a video for a couple of minutes.
Hi, my name is Jay. I teach class 6th in Vadgaon Budruk, PMC 203B English Medium School, and I teach 32 kids in my class. This is a Pune Municipal Corporation school, and all the kids, those who come to my school, belong to a very underprivileged family. So I know that if a kid is doing hard work every day, if a kid is invested in his studies or her studies, there is no matter, like a finance thing will never actually depress anyone, right? Anyone can do anything, they can achieve anything, and that's what I actually want for my students. I want that my students, despite of having so much of challenges and difficulties in their life, they will overcome all those challenges by themselves, and they will find a way out of those difficulties. Like, I want my kids to be disciplined, independent learners. More than 80% of kids are exactly on the track what I want for them, and if they will continue doing it, I am damn sure they are going to achieve everything in their life. So I myself belong to a very underprivileged family. I was there in slum. I have lived my 8 to 10 years there in the slum, which we called it as a community, so-called, and that's why somewhere I decided to live with my kids. And when I joined my fellowship, I have a list of exams through which I can expose my kids. And then this year, 5 of my students, International Maths Olympiad, they have cleared it with a very awesome rank. 2 of them already have a state rank 1, and all of them have international rank under 500, including city rank is also 1. So it's pretty much the exposure I'm trying to give them. And next year my plan is all the kids will write this exam, and at least 50% will clear the level 1 with a good rank.
So what Jay did was, first he shared about his own life. I think he alluded to it briefly here. He spoke about how he fought against odds to land where he did. He was a mechanical engineer, and he graduated at the top 3 of his class. But that's just half the story. What he decided to do with his own miracle in his life was just magical. And you heard exactly what he did for 2 years. Turns out, most of the kids that he spoke about are at grade level, and as he said, they are at international Olympiad and state exams and so on, but that's not the end of it. He mobilized the entire community for parents to demand rights for their children. He made sure that the relationship between the school authorities and the children are intact, and he is now on the verge of, after graduation, he found his calling. He's still there, working in the community as what we call an aggregator, and somebody who brings multiple organizations together in order to create disproportionate impact on the community. At the end of his fellowship, he was recognized as the best teacher by the Pune Municipal Corporation, and a group of students from Tata Institute of Social Studies even approached him to learn what is it that he did, which can be used across several districts in the state of Maharashtra. There was one incident, when he narrated it, it had a profound impact on me. A few months earlier, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a trained teacher. I joined from the private sector as the speaker introduced me, and I had been to several classes, hundreds of them, as part of my work, but I never taught. It's a big difference, you know. You make observations, comments, those are the easier ones. To step in and teach is a different ballgame altogether. So about a year or so after I started doing my role, I approached one of a great teacher that she is, and I said, listen, I want to teach. And she looks a little suspicious and says, okay, let's give it a shot. I'll tip the odds in your favor. You pick the standard that you want, you pick the topic that you want, and let's see how you fare. So I chose Standard 8, and those of you from Bombay, there is an area called Abudiyanagar. So I taught in one of the schools there, and I taught economics, a subject that I understand reasonably better than the others. It was a great experience, as anyone would expect. Absolutely challenging, exhilarating. But something else was very significant. As is customary, at the end of the class, I just asked for feedback from students. I said, okay, can you just write 2 or 3 notes about anything that went well, didn't go well, just for my own improvement. And I'll go and think about it with my coach who's observing me, and I want to just get better at teaching. And here are some things about how they manage. A couple of notes. I'm not going to read in the details, but it talks about how they saw my tone, my tenor, how the lesson was structured, and so on. I had about a bunch of 32 notes I just still cherish after 2.5 years. It was equally important for me to get the feedback as much as I was to teach. There's something again about the experience which made me think. So these two, the conversation that Jay had with the entire board and the team, and the process of getting feedback from students made me wonder what was so special about those. Because there is a whole lot of activities that I do, it's not different. I knew from the data that people like Jay existed. There are many more like him. I knew from the data that I'd gone through over and over again that kids gave excellent feedback. They knew how to, if anything, kids' perception is the greatest predictor of teacher success. And yet, it was different when I was there in that room going through that. So I started wondering, what would it take to be in that state every day? Is it even possible? My role certainly doesn't demand it. I'm not teaching every day. I'm not talking to people who do magical work every day. But it was something different. I wanted to know how could you bring that to life on a daily basis? So I went on this usual research path. I found out several articles and researchers and practitioners. What exactly were they all saying? Turns out it's pretty intuitive. They talk about organizations where employees can realize their full potential, be happy. The way I experienced those two events through autonomy, trust, authenticity, individuality, and so on and so forth. None of it is really any path-breaking insight. They're all intuitive, yet I don't think I find the answer that I was looking for. So I kept thinking again, what was it that I was experiencing? Then I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. I wanted to understand from an individual standpoint what experience that he or she would go through in order to experience what I did in those occasions. And there were many more of those. These are just 2 examples. Then things started to fall in place. When I flipped the question and not ask about the organization, but about the people, 5 questions seemed to emerge. What's in it for me? Am I developing? Am I learning? Am I paid fairly? Am I being taken care of? What changes for my team? Do my actions change anybody's life around me in my team? Do their goals get better? Are they more effective because of my actions? What changes for an organization? Shareholder wealth, customer satisfaction, profit, in my case it was social impact, child's learning. What impact have I on beneficiaries? So for example, in my case it was the kids. And it could be anybody, it could be vendors, it could be customers. Is it having an impact on the beneficiaries? And finally, what changes in the society? And now the experiences start to make sense. If you recollect previous experiences, the 2 that I spoke about, perhaps most of my work was restricted to the first 3 questions. What's in it for me? What's in it for my team? What's in the organization? True, when I present impact, I know exactly what's in it for the organization. But did I really understand what's in it for the beneficiaries, or how is the country changing? I don't think so. When I saw Jay create an example of a community that is transformed because of education, the 5th question got answered. I truly believe education is the future of this country, for India to realize its potential. But when he actually showed it, the 5th question, what changes in the society, seemed to be clearly visible to me. When I taught, when the kids presented the feedback to me, I was connecting with the beneficiaries, which I didn't. It's true, all of this was available, but I wasn't experiencing it. Back in 2013, a lot of this, now with this framework, just simple 5-point question, a lot of this seems to make sense. Back in 2002, I mean, that's not me, by the way. It's just a crossroads metaphorically. So I was at the crossroads. I did change from private sector, but it was not an epiphany, or it was not a big decision to make. I just hit an invisible wall. I was enjoying my work. It was great. Go back to the 3 questions. What's in it for me? What's in it for my people? What's in it for the organization? Check, check, check. Everything was great. I was a consultant. I was traveling, solving complex problems. It was really great. But there was an invisible wall. And so the way I tried to answer it was shifting countries, going abroad, and I tried all of that. I went into different locations, met my potential colleagues in a different setting, didn't cut it. So I came back, abruptly quit, just pushed the pause button and said, I'm going to take a break. For 4 or 5 months, I was traveling, meeting people, trying to understand what could I potentially do next. Intuitively, I took a decision to switch sectors and move into the social sector. It was not necessarily, again, as I said, an epiphanous decision, or it was not a aha moment that got me into it. I took an intuitive leap of faith. Now it all began to make sense. I was again asking the wrong questions when I was at the crossroads. I was trying to expand more and more and more of the first 3 questions. What in reality I was seeking was to understand, where can I find answers to the last 2? Where can I connect with my beneficiaries? How can I find a context where every day I can see the impact of my actions translating into a better society? Turns out I'm not alone. So many research alone millennials says the same thing. If you ask what millennials want, they love risks and challenges. They seek inspiration. They want to build a better society. They want to work with people. Now you add up 2 and 2, we have an interesting potential. We don't know how that's going to play out in the future, but let's play it out. If the organizations in the social sector that are closer to the ground, that have impact at the center, can constantly nurture an environment where for every person those 5 questions are answered, millennials are there catching it. Millennials are going to find their purpose. They're going to find their next job in the social sector. Today, it's less than 1%. Less than 1% of organized labor, according to studies that are, I don't even know if they're fully rigorous or documented, but less than 1% is the estimate that works in the social sector. Here's my hypothesis. I predict that we are already starting to see a big movement from the private to the social sector. If the 5 questions are being answered by organizations really well, if they can answer the first 3, which private sector has done for so many decades, the last 2, they're at a unique vantage point which no other sector has. They work close to the beneficiaries. They do it because they want to build a better society. The private sector talent is going to help them understand the first 3 questions anyway. And over a period of time, will this 1% be 10 or 15 in the next 2 decades? Who knows? If the organizations are able to answer those 5 questions convincingly, the millennials are saying that's what they want. For often, there's a lot of debate around we don't understand millennials, etc. Perhaps it's too complex to understand them. Perhaps all the 5 questions need to go together. And perhaps if social sector acts as a platform, that 1% or less than 1% that we see today could be 10 or 15 in the next 2 decades. Only time will tell. Thank you.